This is Mr. Taylor with Verbs, and today we are talking about the moods of verbs. This is one of those topics that can be a little bit tricky. Most of the time, if we are native English speakers, it does come pretty easily to us just from repeating what we've heard, at least for the most common types of moods of verbs. But unfortunately, the trickiest part of this is going to be mastering the vocabulary because we've got some really big words to work on. And some of the moods that we are going to talk about actually can get quite complicated because in the English language, we're really not that familiar with a couple of them, and we'll get to those later. So, first off, let's talk about the different types of moods. We are going to cover 5 because I'm following what the Common Core state standards say to do, and they do mention 5 different types. From the research that I've done, and I'm not going to pretend to be a particular expert in this area as far as the verb moods, but from the research that I've done, there are different numbers of moods depending on who you talk to. So, take this one all with a grain of salt, but this is what we will be talking about for my class, and if you're not part of my class, then I hope you still get something educational out of watching this video and learning about the moods as I have presented them. So, the moods of verbs. First off, we have the most common, the indicative mood. Then we're also going to move into the imperative mood. We also have the interrogative mood. Finally, we're going to move into the trickier ones, conditional mood and subjunctive mood. The first 3 are pretty easy to recognize, probably even for non-native English speakers, people who are not already familiar with the English language, because these are pretty common throughout different languages. The conditional and subjunctive language, depending on what other languages you might already know, those particular moods might be a little bit easier than people who are only familiar with the English language. So, might be why that puts me at a little bit of a disadvantage. First off, our indicative mood. This is just going to be a regular sentence. It just states it's a statement of fact or opinion. Whether or not that fact is true or false, it just tells it like it is. Like in our cartoon here, our Grumpy Cat meme says, "I had fun once, it was horrible." He's obviously stating his opinion, and he's stating it just like he's stating a fact. This is our regular, run-of-the-mill indicative sentence, just like most sentences will be. Next, we're going to move into our interrogative sentence, and this reminds me of the word interrogation, like a police interrogation. They're going to bring you in, they're going to sit you down at the table, they're going to shine the bright light in your face and ask you, where were you on the night of August 22nd? These are questions. So in our meme here, sticking with the cat theme for some reason, we say, how long have you controlled the red dot? This is a great example of a sentence in the interrogative mood. The verb is in the interrogative mood. Now, something interesting that happens with the interrogative mood verbs is our helping verb is going to jump up in front of the subject. The subject of the sentence in the picture is you, and our verb is have controlled. And the first helping verb there jumps up in front of the subject, you, which is something that does not happen in the indicative sentence. In the indicative sentences in English, the subject almost always comes completely first, and the verb almost always comes as a complete whole second. There are plenty of options to break the rules because, hey, that's just how English works. But that's typically what you see. In the interrogative mood, things start to shuffle around a little bit. Speaking of things shuffling around just a little bit, in the imperative mood, this is a command. Think of the phrase, it is imperative that you, ... however you want to finish this. This is a command, just like the baby here, quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger, get to the chopper. In this case, our subject actually completely disappears from the sentence. We start off with our verb because that's what's getting to the heart of what we need to do, and that's how commands can be delivered quickly. We do have what we call the understood you. You is actually the subject of the sentence. Whoever is listening to this, reading this sentence, that will be the subject of the sentence, but it's not actually written out, typically, inside the sentence, which is an interesting take on the way that subjects and verbs interact for the imperative mood. For the subjunctive mood, I have this comic here. What if there were no hypothetical questions? A subjunctive mood verb is going to show that what we're talking about is actually contrary to reality. It could be a wish, it could be a hypothetical situation, but it's saying, what if this were to happen? And it's letting us know that this is not actually happening, but it's an idea that we're thinking about. And that leads us to conditional, which is actually pretty similar, but there are a significant couple of differences. Conditional depends on something else to happen. It's like, if this happens, then that will happen. for this meme, what if I told you that you can go to the gym without telling everyone on Facebook about it? This is what if this were to happen? What would happen next? That's how that mood is set up with a verb. So for the moods of verbs, indicative, here's an example. Bill called his sister. I'm going to translate this same group of words, the same idea, into the different moods. Here we have imperative. Call Bill's sister. This becomes a command. It's imperative that you do this. Next we have interrogative. Has Bill called his sister? Here we can see the helping verb has jumped up towards the beginning of the sentence. And in the last sentence, the imperative sentence, because it's a command, we don't actually have the subject listed. It's an understood you. We just understand that the subject of that sentence is you. We're going to move on to our conditional mood. If Bill calls his sister, she will answer. And will is a modal helping verb to modify answer, because this is something that's not going to happen for sure. It's only going to happen if something else happens before it. And then we move into our subjunctive. Bill would call his sister if he were able. So it's telling us clearly he's not able to through the construction. If he were able, that's how something else would have happened. It's the subjunctive, not something that's really happening. It's contrary to what's actually happening. All right, here is everyone's favorite Justin Bieber with a grammatical error in one of his most popular songs. He says, if I was your boyfriend, I'd never let you go. And as students of the English language, we are learning that he actually should have said, if I were your boyfriend, because we can tell this is in the subjunctive mood, something contrary to what's actually happening. And the subjunctive is actually always going to use the form were instead of another verb like was, which is kind of an interesting carryover. The subjunctive mood of verbs in other languages is still in play and has great effects on the language and how you conjugate different verbs. In English, kind of fortunately, maybe for us, maybe at least it makes things a little bit easier. There aren't a lot of carryovers. If you track the history of our language, the subjunctive use of the subjunctive mood used to have a much greater effect on the way that we conjugated our verbs, the way we used our verbs. Now, there are very few things that really still need to change that catch us off guard. This example, using were, is one of those. Also, talking more about the modal helping verbs, these modals will always be the first helping verb in a series of helping verbs. And unfortunately, I can't say this is a hard and fast rule either. However, typically, if you have the conditional mood and you're going to use these modal helping verbs, you'll use modal helping verbs like will, shall, can, and might. And if you're in the subjunctive mood, you're going to typically use modal helping verbs like would, should, could, and may. All right, well, thanks for watching. This has been probably more than you ever wanted to know about the verb moods. Thank you.